a little bit. Buenos dias. It's really great to be here and to see so many of you that I haven't seen in some long time. So these post-COVID gatherings are always a treat. But welcome to the Carbon Capture and Sequestration Symposium. I want to start off by thanking just some of the partners that really made this event happen, but we have had a tremendous amount of federal, state, and local partnerships to make this event happen. But mostly I want to start by thanking Stanford University, both Michael Wara from the Doerr School of Sustainability and Sarah Seltzer from the Center for Carbon Storage. We really could not have done this without their expertise and their support. And of course, the California Air Resources Board Chair Liane Randolph and her senior advisor, Daniela Simonovich. I also want to thank the impetus for much of this, which was the community-based partners that reached out to me, I think week one on my job to say, hey, we really need to dig into this issue. And that would be Matt Holmes, who will be speaking in a little bit, who is our host here in Stockton with Little Manila Rising. So thank you, Matt. Nayamin Martinez, I haven't seen her yet. There she is. Thank you, Nayamin. Gave me my first tour of a potential project. Genevieve Amsalam, Executive Director of the Central California Environmental Justice Network, and Dr. Catherine Garupa with the Central Valley Air Quality Coalition, and Connie Cho from Communities for a Better Environment. Thank you all very much. Our planning committee, which includes everyone I just mentioned, has been working very extremely hard to make these things happen. You all know how hard it is to come together, but particularly on this topic where there is a great diversity of opinion and really wanting to provide the space for science, for dialogue, for discussion, debate, and really bring forward what are the core community-based issues that we've been hearing about. So I really want to acknowledge that unique opportunity that we have to have this type of in-depth discussion. And really, we're looking at this as an active learning discussion. It's not going to stop here. It's going to continue from here, but allowing us to really hear each other and learn from each other. And then Michael and Sarah are going to go research it all for us. Of course, we sit here, no one needs to, we need to state the obvious, probably not, but we're sitting here in a week of extreme hurricanes on the East Coast. We, in my region, had extreme fires, particularly in New Mexico this summer, and we had extreme heat here in California and other parts of the West setting records of duration and levels. So we know the need to really get to a decarbonized future is ever more important, and every strategy is needed. At the federal government, of course, we know, before Liane tells me, that our main responsibility and our main focus are on the mobile sources of these emissions. And I'm very happy to say that we're going to meet the president's mandate to get to heavy duty reductions for the heavy duty sector, as well as the light medium duty sector by the end of the year, starting with some hopeful regulations, particularly to get control of our NOx emissions. So mobile sources are top priority in terms of a mobile strategy, in terms of a GHG emission strategy to get our reductions down. Of course, methane reduction and the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act gave us greater authority for methane reduction strategies across the whole of government, and we have a big part of that. And of course, many other strategies like I'm going to use an acronym here, HFCs, and some of those other super pollutants that we're getting a handle on. And I just want to mention that framework because we do see this element of carbon sequestration as a transition strategy as we decarbonize. And really, it's not the big one. The big one are those mobile sources, but it is an important one. And so I do want to just talk a little bit about, obviously that's the overall EPA role, but the EPA role specifically on these projects. And we have one piece of permitting these projects that's pretty significant. And in some regions, this authority has been delegated to the state as the primary responsible permitter, but not yet in California or any of the West, in fact, in the Southwest. And so right now, our primary role in this is actually under the Safe Drinking Water Act, underground injection control permitting. We currently have 5 applications that have been submitted. And again, want to make a plug to the table outside, the EPA table, so you can ask questions about those. We have a website that is maintained with those applications and information around those applications. And our goal really is to be as transparent and as engaged with the host communities of those potential application projects. But these projects are here. We currently, well, I was going to say the same thing again. We currently have 5 application projects, and we know there's many more. I know yesterday there was a tour of some of the other potential projects as well. So there's just to say there's a lot of activity here, and I am particularly thankful to be able to have this discussion outside of the very black and white, more black and white permitting process, where we don't often get the chance to dialogue, to partner with communities, to hear from industry on any limitations, to talk about just the diversity, even within these 5 projects, of all the different elements that they have to look at. So I really want to thank you in providing this space and being willing to be here and have these engagements. And again, it's definitely not the end. We're going to continue in different forms of engagement. But I want to thank you very much. And I'm going to now pass it to my co-partner here, Chair Randolph.
Thank you so much. As Martha mentioned, when she and I first discussed the idea for this event, we really wanted to create a forum for community stakeholders, environmental justice leaders, CCS experts, and policymakers to talk about the environmental and public health issues related to the use of this technology. And, you know, we really wanted to create a space for people to connect and learn and identify strategies to ensure equitable deployment of CCS technology. And, you know, as my colleague indicated, this is the beginning of a lengthy and important dialogue. And so we really wanted to make sure that the symposium speakers and participants reflected a wide range of views. And I really want to echo my thanks as well to the planning committee who accomplished that task and brought a room of smart, engaged, interested, and well-informed people to have this conversation. So very excited to be here with you all. And I wanted to thank Air Resources Board staff, some of whom are here, some of whom are participating remotely. And our executive officer, Steve Cliff, is here as well, who just rejoined the agency about a month ago. And so hope some of you have a chance to say hello. And as we know, there's a lot of different perspectives in this room. And so this was really an opportunity to share information, to share perspectives, so that we can all be better informed as we do this work going forward. As you all know, the Air Resources Board is charged with leading our state's efforts to address climate change and with reducing air pollution to protect public health. And we are currently developing the 2022 update to the AB 32 scoping plan, which lays out a path to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045 with priority on direct greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And that's an impressive goal. We are determined to hit that target. But even if all of our strategies work and we hit all of our targets, there will still be some remaining emissions, such as emissions from hard to abate sectors, legacy emissions from cars and trucks that are still going to be on the road into 2045. Those emissions will remain despite the most stringent nation-leading GHG reductions at each source. So that presents a challenge. What do we do with those emissions? And to address them, the state is going to need the widest range of options available, including carbon dioxide removal and carbon capture and sequestration. We do not see these technologies as a replacement for direct emissions reductions from industrial sources, but rather a way to deploy strategies to meet the urgent challenge of climate change, and deploying all of those strategies in a strategic and effective way as possible, and in a way that protects communities. And that's the purpose for this conversation today, to understand how to do that. And this comes at a particularly important time, because in this last legislative session, we at the Air Resources Board were given a legislative mandate through Senate Bill 905 to establish a regulatory framework for safe deployment of carbon removal and carbon capture utilization and sequestration, while banning its use for the continued production of fossil fuels through enhanced oil recovery. So in 2023, we will be taking steps to kick off that regulatory process to design and establish that framework. And so we look forward to working collaboratively with all of you in this room and local communities and federal partners to ensure transparent and meaningful community engagement in the process. So today's conversation really is a great opportunity to develop a deeper understanding of the technology and potential impacts, and to identify strategies to address those. So I look forward to this discussion with you today, and more importantly, in the coming months and years. And so with that, I believe we have a recorded message from California's newly appointed Secretary for Environmental Protection, Yana Garcia, who really wanted to be here today. But given that it's like maybe her second or third week on the job, it was a little challenging. But she did want to make sure and share her support for this conversation and her thoughts. So we have a recording from her.
Good morning, everyone. Yana Garcia here, Secretary for Environmental Protection for the state of California. I wish I could be with you in person today for this important conversation about carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. I know these discussions will be informative and fruitful, and I want you to know that I'm deeply committed to working collaboratively with each of you to ensure that we achieve our increasingly protective climate and health goals, which includes getting it right on CCUS. I also want to assure you that the Newsom administration and my colleagues across state agencies share this commitment, as well as my commitment to keeping equity and justice at the forefront of our approach to building a more resilient future for our state. As many of you know, the legislative package recently signed into law creates setback requirements for oil and gas wells in neighborhoods, something that many of you, your colleagues, and communities across the state have pushed for years. It also includes a $54 billion climate budget with a strong focus on reducing transportation-related emissions, primarily affecting low-income communities of color. Now, we have a challenging goal ahead of us to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045 and to aggressively reduce the majority of emissions causing climate change in our state to 85% their 1990 levels by 2040. And we need a variety of tools to reach these goals. CCUS is one of them. Governor Newsom directed CARB to include 2 targets for carbon dioxide removal: 20 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030 and 100 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2045. And CARB is in the process of updating its scoping plan, which will be presented to the board at a public hearing in December and will reflect these 2 targets. But achieving them means relying on several strategies, including carbon sequestration from natural and working lands first, from carbon capture and sequestration technologies such as direct air capture, and possibly other carbon removal technologies. Now, this does not mean that we will rely heavily on CCUS. California must continue our work of reducing emissions at the source and focus on sequestering carbon through nature-based solutions as much as possible. That is our first priority. But Senate Bills 905 and 1314 directed our agencies to move forward with creating a CCUS framework while banning the use of CCS for enhanced oil recovery. But we know there are other potential risks associated with CCUS. And our goal in state government is to work collaboratively with local, state, and federal partners to govern the CCUS projects judiciously and responsibly in California. We will ensure that there is early and continuous communications with communities so that appropriate guardrails are in place, and we will push for inclusion of community benefit agreements wherever applicable. We will also work to provide you all with accessible and transparent information about permitting, monitoring, and enforcement. As many of you know well, proper monitoring and environmental enforcement are critical to protecting community health and the environment. And we've learned a lot from the history of enforcement we've had with oil and gas. We do not plan to repeat those mistakes. Public health and equity will be front of mind when we draft our CCUS framework. And I want to thank you so much for the important work you're doing here today. And I look forward to collaborating with each and every one of you on this suite of issues. Have a great day.
Good morning, everybody. Matt Holmes, Little Manila Rising Environmental Justice Director. If you'll forgive me, I used to be a park ranger, so I learned never talk to a group of people without learning a little bit about them. So can I see a show of hands? How many people, this is your first time in Stockton? All right, can I see who lives in Stockton? Can I see who lives in the San Joaquin Valley? All right, super cool. So I'm really grateful to have you guys out here, both because I always like to bring people to Stockton. I think it's a great American city and it's worth saving. And I also think by bringing you here, that helps me protect Stockton. And it should be like a really silly thing for a history teacher to say out loud that I feel like I'm protecting Stockton. But the fact of the matter is, community-based organizations are protecting their communities all over the San Joaquin Valley. We're doing inappropriate work because nobody else is doing it. So I work for a historic preservation organization, Little Manila Rising. It's supposed to generate cultural resources programs. But we couldn't save buildings while people were dying 10 years early right outside of those buildings. So my boss and executive director is a filmmaker, and we're the people that got our census tracts up to parity for COVID vaccinations. Right? These are responsibilities that have fallen to us in this region. And so I bring that up because this is the context that this carbon capture strategy is waltzing into. It's coming into a region, the San Joaquin Valley, that has been historically disinvested for decades. One of the greatest wealth producing regions in all of human history. It's the most poverty impacted households in all of North America. We have a ton of trauma about bright new ideas that make some people tons of money in a region where we have a pattern of not distributing that money and not providing equitable resilience. So I'm grateful to have you here. I want to thank the administrator for responding to that tour back in April. And, you know, we both kind of looked at each other and go, wow, this went really fast. This went really fast from really justifiable and defensible exploratory research to implementation and permits. And, you know, I was in the middle of trying to develop outdoor remote sensing networks so that I could give people, you know, protective information so they could not have asthma attacks. Barbara was trying to restore water flow to Stockton with Restore the Delta to save a great American city. Catherine and CVAC are working on a state implementation plan. We have all these super significant fights that we're in, and helping us like restore equitable investment in a region that's been racially disinvested in for decades. This was the work that we were doing. And then we get this surprise that there's a big idea that people have been working on for a long time in our region that pretends to deliver a lot of investment to our region. We kind of had to find out about it flat-footed and engage this issue and try to get a hold of it. And I think everybody here should be glad that we did, because we found a lot of things that need to be explored further. Learning from this community and including us in this process will make this a safer process. It might even come with the result that sometimes we say no to things that aren't necessarily safe, that we can't prove are safe. And so I think, as we said, as I heard Chair Randolph say, you know, we're going to leave from here because there's so much to learn. There's so much to close in this literacy gap. For those of you that have been working on this a long time, and those of us that are going to have to live with it for a long time. And so we're going to have to work together on moving this forward, because the last thing we want to do is hurt this idea that may very well be necessary. Like, I live in Stockton, where we die early from planned pollution. When wildfires hit us, they hit Stockton harder than they hit communities that don't have planned disease like asthma. So our house is on fire. I would love to find a technical engineering solution to global climate instability. But because we come to this from the humanities, you know, I mean, we're not exactly confident that we're going to see the culture shift that we need to see to really address the roots of climate instability and inequality in California. So, you know, we're not entirely opposed to considering the strategy in our region, but there are very serious questions that still need to be answered for anybody in our communities and to be able to say that we think this is good for us. So I hope we'll continue to include all of us. I hope, you know, I think I also want to highlight that the only reason we're here is that there were peculiar connections. Like, Catherine was able to introduce me to the administrator and was able to introduce me to the national labs. People that know that they can't do anything in the Delta without talking to Barbara. These are these are fortunate circumstances that you're not going to find in every community. And as we try to explore this idea throughout California, everyone here has to remember there's a big difference between a good idea and how it gets implemented in a region that has real problems with local government and local accountability, transparency, and governance. So those are barriers that I'm not throwing at this issue. Those are barriers that were here all along. And hopefully everybody leaves here with a greater appreciation for that. So with that, I want to thank Yana.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you to the EPA and the Air Resources Board for being here and hosting to this today in Stockton. As Matt mentioned, my organization, Edge Collaborative, is a civic incubator. We focus on tackling persistent and systemic economic challenges in the region by reimagining what's possible. To do this, we catalyze novel initiatives with partners, and we invest in talent, coalition building, and in some cases, policy support. Coalitions, though, are messy, and carbon is one of those topics that has brought together an unlikely coalition of allies. The reason that we've developed trust in that effort is because we've listened to community stakeholders about their concerns and then identified a set of collective priorities to advance. That has resulted in the development of a comprehensive carbon research agenda. And we believe that will inform carbon research conversations that should be happening not just locally, not just statewide, but nationally as well. Thank you. Over the last 18 months, as Matt mentioned, we've engaged with the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And since then, we've also brought in the Department of Energy to assist the community in thinking about some of the topics and the open research questions that we believe are critical to move this conversation forward. For us, that has meant engaging in really difficult conversations about the unknowns, the implications, and the risks that this topic provides. But for us, we believe that Stockton is ground zero for a lot of environmental justice issues. And as Secretary Yana Garcia just mentioned, we believe that EJ communities have an outsized role to play in advising on transparency, data, community benefits, and oversight relative to carbon. As we do that, we know that, as Matt mentioned, Stockton has a lot of historical pollution and poverty burdens that it's borne for decades, and carbon is coming into that context in this region. We know that we need everyone in this room to pull together. We can't do it alone, and we don't want to do it alone. So I would encourage everyone today in the coming panels and discussions that we engage in a way that is open to understanding the unknowns, the implications, and the consequences of our collective efforts. And thank you for being here today. I'll pass it to Michael.
Good morning. I'm Mike Wara from the Stanford Doerr School for Sustainability, where I work in our Sustainability Accelerator. The Doerr School is the first new school at Stanford to be created in 70 years. And it was created, we opened last month, so this is a new thing for Stanford. And this is one of the first events that we've held. And I am so proud that our school could help support this convening in this place. I think it marks a real change in what academia can do to provide resources and to help create impact in a world that's very positive. Stanford has a deep history in carbon capture, storage, carbon capture and utilization research. We have many academics that work in that space and have for decades, and we're super proud of them. We also have, because Stanford is a very large place, we have a significant number of academics, myself included, that work closely with environmental justice organizations on policy issues related to the energy transition. And what I am so excited about this event is bringing those communities together to support better decision-making for the state of California. I think that the engagement of both sides is incredibly important and I wouldn't limit this just to Stanford, but to really all of academia. And we have a number of academic experts here from many universities and also from the government today. But I think if we can work together collaboratively to help to raise the level of the conversation to identify where real unknowns and risks exist and where they do not, we can all make better decisions about the process that's rapidly developing in the United States, and in particular in the state of California, and especially in the Central Valley. This meeting is so important today because of a number of developments that have occurred over the last year, both in DC and in Sacramento, as have been mentioned today. Passage of the infrastructure bill, passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, and the passage of the SB 905 permitting roadmap and pore space clarifications create a context in which CCUS is really for the first time potentially going to occur in California. Of course, and I should add actually, as Chair Randolph mentioned, and also the important attention that's being paid to CCUS in the draft scoping plan update. I think all of these developments point to the need to make sure that good projects happen. And I don't think all projects are good projects. I actually started out as a land use lawyer very early in my career and was taught early on that the way that projects actually happen is through deep community engagement. I think that's the intention of this meeting, to meet early before there's a permit, before there's a public comment process, and really to engage and learn from the community where a project might be sited, to understand the concerns, and to make sure that projects genuinely address those concerns. That's how CCUS in California will happen. I think that a permitting process or even money from the federal government doesn't guarantee that things will happen unless that engagement occurs. This is the beginning, something that's very important in that respect. And I'm just tremendously excited that all of you were willing to take the time today out of your lives to come and be a part of this process and to learn together. One of the key objectives of the part of the new school that I work in, the Sustainability Accelerator, is co-creation of ideas, questions, and research. And that, for me, means working with all of you in this room to understand what questions you have about the energy transition, that we can then apply the incredible tools and analytical capacity of Stanford to try to answer. It's getting out in the world, working with communities, especially communities that have been subject to historic structural racism, particularly in the energy space, to understand your concerns so that we can make sure that this energy transition doesn't happen in the way that so much of our energy development in the United States has. We do things right this time. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. I'm just thrilled that everyone could do this and make time and travel so far. So many of you traveled to be here. And I'd also like to thank everyone on the planning committee. Personally, this has been a huge effort and everyone has been so generous of their time. Staff, particularly Sarah and Yana, have just gone above and beyond to try to make this meeting a success. And thank you very much. I'm really excited for the day.